This story isn't one I ever wanted to share. I've kept quiet for years, tried to rationalize it, to bury it under the comforting weight of disbelief. But it hasn't gone away. It's never gone away. Sometimes when the house is still and the night stretches on too long, I hear it again, soft and close like breath slipping through cotton. It started in 2017, shortly after I moved into the old farmhouse my aunt left me. The place sat on the edge of a forgotten town in northern Vermont, wrapped in a crust of frost and mist, and a silence that pressed against your skin. She hadn't lived there in years. It was more of a storage place for family junk and unspoken memories. I needed space, quiet, and a break from the life I had back in Boston. So I moved in, thinking a little renovation and solitude would be good for me. The first week was uneventful, unless you count the scurrying sounds in the attic or the way the floorboards never settled, even when no one was walking. It was an old house, after all, drafty, full of its own creaks and personality. But the pillow that started on the 8th night, it was just a normal feather pillow. I don't know where it came from. I found it already on the bed in the guest room, where I'd been sleeping while working on fixing up the master bedroom. It had yellowed slightly, like something aged and forgotten. No tags, no brand, but it was comfortable, unnaturally so, actually. As soon as my head hit it, I'd fall asleep. And then came the voice. The first time I heard it, I thought I was dreaming. A soft, almost cooing whisper came from right beneath my ear, as though someone was trapped inside the pillow, whispering from deep in the stuffing. "Why did you leave me here?" I shot up, heart pounding. The room was empty, dimly lit by moonlight. I grabbed the pillow, flipped it over, pressed on it, even ripped open a seam looking for a prank device or something. Nothing. Just feathers and the faint, musty smell of age. Over the next few nights, the whispering continued, sometimes sad, sometimes angry. Always quiet, always from the pillow. The words didn't make sense. They were fragmented. You were supposed to come back. Don't forget what you promised. He watches when you sleep. I stopped sleeping, started recording audio on my phone, but the recordings were always silent, as though the voice only existed for me. I began staying up later, drinking more, trying to push off the moment I had to lay my head down. When I tried using a different pillow, I'd wake up with the old one under my head again. On the 13th night, I finally threw it into the fireplace and burned it. It screamed, I swear to God, as the flames devoured the fabric. A thin, high-pitched scream burst out, not from the pillow, but from inside my head. I fell to my knees, clutching my ears, and by the time I looked up, the pillow was gone. Not burned. Gone. Ashes surrounded the fireplace logs. But not a single feather. That's when I knew it wasn't a dream. And it wasn't over. After I burned the pillow, I convinced myself that would be the end of it. I even told a friend, jokingly, nervously, that I'd exorcised the damn bedding. But deep down, I didn't feel relief. I felt exposed, as though destroying the thing had unshackled something worse, something that no longer needed feathers to speak. The nights grew quieter, but not in the peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that felt loaded, pregnant with something waiting to be heard. I slept on the couch downstairs with all the lights on for 3 nights straight. That house felt different now. Not haunted, necessarily. More like it was watching. I kept catching cold spots that didn't make sense. Finding doors ajar I'd shut. One night, every faucet in the house turned on at once. But it was the voice that came back first. It wasn't in the pillow anymore. It was in the walls. Soft at first. Muffled. like someone was whispering from within the plaster. I'd hear it when I walked past the staircase, or when I stood in the narrow hallway near the bedrooms. Always in the same cadence, breathy, wet, and pleading. You're not listening. He's coming through. Let me out. Please, I know where the bones are. It got worse every night. I started tearing into the walls with a crowbar. I was half mad with fear, hammering drywall and insulation, trying to find a speaker or raccoon, anything that would explain it. But there was nothing, just a house staring blankly back at me. And then I found the crawl space behind the linen closet. It wasn't on the original blueprints. I discovered it when I pulled a shelf out of the closet to replace the rotting boards and noticed a breeze, cold and slow, like breath. Behind the wooden paneling was a small wooden door barely large enough to crawl through. No handle, just a slit and old, rusted hinges. I grabbed a flashlight and forced the door open. The smell that hit me was foul, wet dust, mold, and something coppery beneath it all. The space inside wasn't even 5 feet wide. Cobwebs and dust choked the air. But what made me freeze wasn't the room. It was what was in it. A bed, a small iron-framed cot with no mattress, only a stained blanket and another pillow. The same pillow, same shape, same yellowing, same faint lace stitching around the edges. It wasn't burned. It had moved. Before I could run, I heard it again, louder now, directly beside my ear, though nothing was there. You brought me back. This time you have to stay. I dropped the flashlight and scrambled backward out of the crawl space. I slammed the closet shut, shoved furniture against it, and didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I was spiraling. I stopped answering calls. I stopped leaving the house. I taped over the closet door and tried to convince myself none of it was real. But then the dreams began. Dreams of being buried alive in feathers. Of a cold pressure pinning me down in bed. Of hearing a voice whispering my childhood name, one I hadn't heard in years. And of waking up with feathers in my mouth. I haven't left the house in nearly 2 weeks. Time has become a strange, flickering thing. Measure more by how often the voice moves locations than by clocks or days. It no longer confines itself to the walls or the pillow. Now, it breathes through the air itself, through vents, through cracks in the floorboards, through the very seams of my furniture. And worse, I think the house is starting to change around it. I first noticed it with the hallway. It used to be maybe 12 feet long. I remember this distinctly. I measured it when I first moved in to figure out how long of a runner rug I'd need. But now, when I walk it, it stretches on much longer. I counted the steps one night. 28, then 32, then 50. The hallway curves now slightly, subtle at first, then obvious. Sometimes I walk the hallway and end up right back where I started, even though I never turn around. I thought maybe I was losing it, that I was in some kind of psychotic break. But when I asked my phone to map my house's floor plan through a smart home app, it refused to generate a path from the hallway to the kitchen, as though the hallway didn't connect to anything anymore. And still the voice kept talking, soft like a breath through cotton. Don't leave me again. Why did you stop looking? I'm still underneath you. That last one hit me the worst, because I hadn't told anyone about the dreams. The ones where I'm strapped to a hospital bed, the sheets over me heavy and wet, like soaked wool. A woman leans over me, but her face is wrong. Her mouth is too wide, stretching where her eyes should be. She sings lullabies I don't remember learning. And behind her head, a shape with no face presses against the ceiling, listening. Sometimes I wake up in places I didn't fall asleep. The kitchen, the basement, once even in the crawl space behind the closet, curled around that same pillow. I don't remember walking there. But worst of all, I've started hearing it when I'm not in the house. I drove to a motel last week after waking up with blood around my nose and ears. I told myself I'd leave for good. But as I lay there on the crusty motel bed, I heard it again. Muffled, garbled, from the cheap, lumpy pillow beneath my head. You can't run from where you sleep. I threw the pillow across the room, but it didn't stop. It only grew louder. I turned on the lights and found, God help me, the pillow had my face stitched into it. My face, smiling, eyeless. I fled that motel in bare feet and drove home at 3 a.m., sobbing and screaming. I don't know why I came back. Maybe it knew it was already in me. Maybe it needed me to return. The next morning, I found something new on my nightstand. A note, written in my handwriting, though I never wrote it. He lives between the layers of the fabric. The bones you hear breaking are not yours, yet. But the pillow is hungry again. He wants the one who sang to him. I don't know who he is, but I think I know what he wants. And I think I've remembered something I shouldn't have. There's a rotting under the skin of this house. Not literal rot, though the smell is sometimes so thick and cloying it leaves a film in my throat, but something deeper. The kind of rot that doesn't grow in wood or flesh. It festers in memories, in guilt, in sleep, and now it's seeping out. It started with the walls. Late one night, I noticed that the paint in the bedroom, eggshell white, was sagging like it had grown heavy, bloated, almost breathing. I pressed my hand against it. It was warm, too warm. There was a sound coming from inside behind the drywall. Not the voice this time, but the wet sound of lips moving without words, like a mouth try to form language that never existed. That same night, I woke up with a pillow over my face. I didn't put it there. It wasn't suffocating me, not exactly, but I could feel it pushing down. Not in a physical way, but like it was pressing some part of me inward, like it was trying to pull my breath into it. My dreams turned violent. A crib, rocking by itself in a room lit with flickering candlelight. Blood on the slats. A woman sobbing softly into the mattress. A child's voice singing the same line over and over. Sleep with me and never wake. I don't know how long I was asleep. When I came to, the entire room was rearranged. The bed had moved 3 feet to the left. The mirror was facing the wall. The closet door was open, and I haven't opened that thing in weeks. The pillow sat neatly in the center of the bed, like a headstone. I left the room for 2 days. Slept on the living room floor. But it didn't matter. The voice found me there too. I like when you fight it. It whispered through the rug. Your fear makes me softer. I threw out the pillow. I tore it to pieces in the yard, burned it in a metal bin I hadn't touched since I moved in. The flame shrieked. Not the sound of air or fuel, but a child's shriek, too high to be coming from anything in this world. Neighbors turned their lights on. No one came outside. The next morning, it was back on my bed. Same exact pillow. Same stain on the corner. But different now. The fabric was stitched closed. Something inside it moved when I picked it up. Like a spider trapped in cotton. I called someone. A friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Jenna. She was the only one who ever believed me about things like this. She drove 2 hours to get here. I didn't tell her the whole truth, just that I was hearing things that I thought I was losing my mind. She stayed the night. The moment she walked into the house, She frowned. It smells like wet stone in here, she said. Like a cave. I told her it was just the rain, but she kept looking at the pillow. When we went to sleep, I offered her the bed, and I slept on the couch. At 3:11 a.m., I woke up choking. Not from a dream, not from a pillow, from a sound. It was my voice, coming from a bedroom. Sleep with me and never wake. I bolted down the hall. The door was ajar. The room was pitch black, but I could see movement in the shadows. Something was crouched on the bed, its back to me, stroking the pillow with too many hands. Jenna was frozen, staring upward, eyes wide, filled with tears, but unable to scream. The thing didn't turn, but it spoke, in her voice, in mine, in the voice from the pillow. You brought her. You made room for two. I yanked her out of bed and slammed the door shut behind us. She couldn't speak for an hour, just cried, rocking back and forth. When she finally looked up at me, her mouth trembled. Did you hear what it said to me? She whispered. I nodded, afraid to ask. It said, she paused, then whispered, it remembers my mother. Jenna's mom died in 1996, burned in a house fire when Jenna was 7. She was clutching a pillow when they found her body. I haven't closed my eyes in 4 days. Not truly. Every time I blink for too long, I see it, the black seam in the pillow, tearing wider, breathing. It doesn't just whisper now. It groans a long, rattling sound like lungs filled with dust. And sometimes at the edge of sleep, I feel it pressing against the underside of my eyelids. Jenna hasn't spoken since that night. She stays curled in the living room, knees to her chest, humming a lullaby I don't recognize. Sometimes she rocks forward and whispers in her knees, don't answer it. Don't answer it. Don't answer it. I don't know what she's talking about. Or maybe I do, and I'm pretending not to. Because if I let it in, whatever it is, I know I won't come back. The pillow moved again. I left it outside, weighted it with bricks, poured a full gallon of bleach on it, then buried it in the woods behind the property line. By morning, it was back on the bed. Only now it wasn't resting. It was sunken like something inside had curled up and gone to sleep. The stitching had split just enough for me to see something black and slick nestled deep inside. Not feathers, not cotton, something alive. I didn't touch it. Couldn't. It felt like staring at a mouth with no teeth, waiting to suck you in. That night the dreams changed. I was in my childhood bedroom, except the proportions were wrong. The ceiling was too high, the walls pulsed, and there were no windows. Just the bed. And the pillow. My younger self was there too, sitting cross-legged on the mattress, face blank, eyes locked on the pillow. He looked up at me and said, we all came from the same sleep. When I tried to move, I couldn't. My legs sank into the carpet. Hands, made of linen and shadow, wrapped around my arms and whispered, we've always been here. The child me smiled and crawled into the pillow. When I woke, I couldn't breathe. My head was halfway inside the pillow, not resting on it, in it. I tore myself back, coughing up black fuzz. My ears rang. Blood dripped from my nose. There were scratches on my cheeks, tiny claw marks. Too small to be human. I screamed. Jenna didn't respond. She was gone. I found her in the hallway, lying on her back, her eyes locked on the ceiling. Her mouth was open, lips moving, but no sound came out, until I knelt beside her. Then from somewhere behind her teeth, I heard it. The voice. The one from the pillow. Except now it said my name. Over and over and over. I called her sister. Begged her to take Jenna away, anywhere else. She came with her husband that night. I didn't tell them anything except that Jenna had a psychotic break. They didn't ask. Maybe they were too afraid to. But as they were leaving, Jenna looked back at me and whispered something. So quiet, I had to read her lips. Don't lie down. That night I didn't sleep, but something else did. The whole house exhaled. I heard it. The walls shifted, wood creaked, and somewhere deep in the floorboards, something uncurled and muttered a word I've only heard once before in a dream. Together. The pillow wasn't on the bed anymore. It was on the ceiling, pinned to it like a bat hanging from a cave roof. It trembled, twitched, the black stitching now wide open, yawning, lined with hair and tiny white teeth. A lullaby floated from inside it, the same one Jenna had been humming. I took a knife and climbed onto the bed. I stabbed at the pillow, but it bled. Thick, pale fluid oozed from the opening. The knife stuck in place like it had hit bone. Then it spoke. Not whispered, spoke, in a voice like wind rushing through a baby's throat. You gave me a name. I backed away, dizzy. The room stretched and bent, like the walls were folding in on themselves. And I realized something I should have known from the beginning. This house isn't haunted. It's dreaming. And the pillow was its mouth. That was last night. I haven't slept since. I feel it watching now, not just from the pillow, but from the shadows, from the outlets, from the spaces between the walls. It's getting closer, hungrier. Jenna left something behind. A notebook. Inside were drawings. Pages filled with black scribbles that looked like eyes, mouths, and curled things in impossible shapes. On the last page, written in smeared ink, were 7 words. If it knows your name, you're gone. Tomorrow, I'll write the final part. Because I know I don't have many nights left. The pillow is back under my head, even though I threw it out again. And tonight, it's humming. I think the house is learning to dream about me. I say that not as metaphor, but fact. In the last 48 hours, I've stopped sleeping entirely. But it no longer matters. I feel the weight of slumber pressing down anyway, not just in my head, but in the walls, in the vents, in the air. Jenna's gone. Her sister won't return my calls. I don't think they even exist anymore. I search her contact online. No results. No records. Like she was never real. But the pillow remains. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag day one. No sleep, I boarded up the bedroom. Hammered planks across the door. Set the pillow on fire in the backyard. Soaked it in gasoline and watched it burn until it turned to black flakes and oily smoke. I didn't sleep. I watched the ashes until morning. But when I came inside, it was on the couch. Fresh, clean, cold. The same pillow, white, with that single black seam running across the top like a closed eye. Like it was resting, just waiting for me to lie down again. That night, I heard something behind the drywall. A slow dragging sound, like cloth being pulled across skin. Then the muffled voice returned. Not from the pillow, from the vent. I followed it to the hallway grate and pressed my ear close. What I heard chilled me. It wasn't words. It was breathing, shallow, uneven like something barely alive. And layered beneath it, a wet clicking, almost like lips forming words without language. Then it hissed. You brought me home. I remembered something. The house inspection 2 years ago. The report mentioned a sealed crawl space behind the master bedroom closet. I had ignored it, thinking it was just insulation. I tore the closet apart. Behind the drywall was a rotted wooden panel. I pried it loose. Inside was a room, no bigger than a coffin. The walls were covered in fabric, old, matted quilts. And in the center sat another pillow. identical to mine, but older, yellowed with time. Mold slicked across its seams. I should have backed out, but I crawled in. When I touched the pillow, my ears popped, like the air pressure changed, and I heard everything. The voices of people I've never met. Children screaming lullabies. A man whispering apologies. A woman crying over and over, "Let me out." They all came from inside the pillow. The fabric twitched under my hand. I saw the stitching part just slightly, and a single eyelid inside the pillow opened. It was bloodshot, and it blinked at me. I screamed. When I scrambled out of the crawl space, the door to the closet slammed shut. I couldn't open it again. The room sealed itself. I haven't left. I can't. Every time I reach for the door, I hear clicking behind the walls, like hundreds of tiny limbs tapping in unison. The pillow follows me. I tossed it in the freezer, locked it inside the garage, buried it in a cement bucket, and dropped it in the neighbor's pool. It always comes back, always colder, always closer. I hear it whispering now, even when I'm awake. Not just my name anymore, but memories. My childhood address. The names of pets long dead. A song my mother used to sing when I was sick. It's not just whispering. It's learning me. The walls are moving. I recorded it this time. Set my phone down in the hallway and left it there overnight. When I played the footage, I saw the walls breathe. Yes, breathe. They pulsed, contracted inward like lungs. And something slid behind them. A bulge moved along the wall from the bedroom to the kitchen. Slow, intentional, a dragging, shapeless form pressing through plaster. And from somewhere off camera, I heard the unmistakable sound of a zipper unzipping, followed by a soft voice. Lie down. I'll show you where dreams come from. The pillow is no longer a pillow. It's split open fully today. Not in a tear, but a birth. The fabric parted like skin, revealing a slick, pink tunnel lined with stitched seams. At the end, something pulsed, like a heart, but made of cotton and teeth. A long, coiled limb, more thread than flesh, slithered out. It touched my foot, and I remembered. All of it. Every time I slept. Every nightmare, every sleep paralysis episode, every dream I forgot. They weren't mine. They were being harvested. It was never about the pillow. It's a mouthpiece, a sensory organ for something ancient, burrowed into the foundations of this house. Maybe deeper, maybe in the earth itself. It feeds on dreams, and it needs your shape, your voice, your breath to weave into new ones. That's why it needs you to sleep, because sleep is a door, and once you open it, it comes through. I'm writing this on the floor by candlelight. The power is out. The pillow lies beside me, wide open now. It seems twitching. I can hear others inside it, crying, some laughing. One voice, Jenna's, is still humming the lullaby. And now I understand. We didn't find the pillow. It found us, one by one, over the years, house to house, bed to bed, passing itself between the vulnerable, the lonely, the insomniacs, the sleepless, people who won't be believed when they try to explain. There's a voice in my pillow. The last thing I'll write is this. If you find this note, burn the house. Do not sleep inside it. Do not even close your eyes near it. The pillow is a beacon, a nerve ending, a lure, and the thing inside it, it's still dreaming, still hungry. And now, it knows your name too.